Welcome to the Planeswalker Project.
The hour of devastation is nearly upon us. Nicobolus has defeated the Gatewatch. The Amonkhet gods are dying. And as always, you'll be completely ignoring the standard scene and going straight for commander cards because that's what we do here at the Planeswalker Project. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the top cards for the commander format from the Hour of Devastation. Let's go. To begin our list, at number 10 is Unesh Kriosfix Sovereign. Every now and then we come across a new legendary creature that we really didn't know we wanted, but it goes into some really unexplored territory. Sphinx Tribal is something we actually don't have anything to support just yet, and while there are yet to be a whole lot of Sphinx creatures in Magic, we now have ourselves a pretty interesting commander for such an occasion. Its ability isn't half bad. It gives us a bit of a watered down version of Fact or Fiction with every Sphinx that enters the battlefield. This ability can be abused and reused with flicker effects, so we can get a ton of card draws, something, given that we're playing mono blue, using cards like Concentrated Sphinx, we should probably already be able to get. We're going to get a lot more of it, so maybe we're going to have a nice Sphinx Tribal deck soon. At number 9, we have Jeru with Eyes Open. Yes, he could easily be a commander in his own deck, however, I feel his best usage is going to be in the 99 of a Planeswalker-themed deck. He brings a nice tutor-to-hand ability for walkers and some pillows for said walkers. While I personally have strayed a bit clear of Super Friends decks, I feel like they have yet to have enough inner card synergies to make a commander deck more viable. But given the recent emphasis on cards that are geared towards Super Friends builds, we're clearly on our way. Bontu's Last Reckoning, our number 8 spot, is a damnation ability that forces us to skip untapping our lands during our next untap step. On the upside, we get a board wipe that is perhaps one of the cheapest to cast at only 3 mana. That can make for some effectively fast plays for this card. On the downside, having to basically skip your next turn can be a very heavy drawback, as you give your opponents 2 turns to recover their losses. Now, of course, there are ways to get around this drawback. This is Commander, and if we can't find a way to work around some drawback to some bonkers cards, we aren't commandering right. A card like Seedborn Muse is perfect for ensuring that we get our lands untapped next turn and basically overcome that drawback. Yes, our lands won't untap during our next untap step, but if they've already tapped before that, so what? Option B, use Cryptolith right, use your creatures to pay for the massive explosion that'll kill them all, and then laugh at the remaining lands you didn't even have to tap. Neheb the Eternal will be our lucky number 7, and I have to say, one of the primary reasons I don't really play with a whole lot of red in Commander is that there aren't a whole lot of good mono-red commanders, at least for my playstyle. I did try building a Krenko Goblin deck once, but it didn't really work well for me. Neheb the Eternal strikes me as an absolutely vicious burn style commander. I really don't know how well a mono-red burn deck may work in a multiplayer format like Commander. Well, I feel like Neheb will be able to offer us a vicious deck to do so with. His Afflict ability, which is perhaps one of my favorite abilities that Magic has introduced in recent times, ensures whether or not he's blocked, he's going to be taking some life from your opponent. And he gives some post-combat ramp. He will be able to let you burn an opponent even further. And if you can consistently deal out at least 5 damage with each combat phase, you can add an aggravated assault for infinite combat steps. Deal at least 5 damage, you get 5 red mana in the post-combat, pay for the assault, untap everything, and swing again. Everyone dies, the end. Hey, maybe I'll actually build this deck so everyone can stop yelling at me for not having a red deck. At number 6, Torment of Hailfire is perhaps going to be one of my new favorite cards in decks like Nath of the Guiltleaf that will want to handle all your opponent's boards and do away with them. So the one thing different about this card that I like is that whatever you pay for X, you will force your opponents to either lose 3 life, sack a non-land permanent, or discard a card X times. You put this into a deck with a lot of ramp, so your opponents will have to clear out a lot of their resources. It might not seem like a lot of impact at first glance, but when your opponent's green-black deck is now forcing you to do this 7 times, that's a combination of up to 7 discards, 7 sacrificed permanents, or a total of 21 life lost to a single card. The Hour of Revelation is our number 5 spot, and I'm noticing just how many board wipes this set comes with. The Hour of Revelation might as well have been in a Commander set, as it will be most at home there. If there are 10 or more non-land permanents on the field, it only costs 3 white mana, and it destroys all non-land permanents. Done. everything dies, end of story. It's pretty self-explanatory, but very potent. I almost don't care that it would cost 6 to hardcast, as I highly doubt I'd ever have to pay that much. In a 4-player game, it's super easy to have 10 permanents across 4 players. 2 creatures per person, a soul ring or 2, maybe an enchantment, and boom, giant explosion, Nicobolus has spoken! Alright, so we're now getting into some really insane territory here. At number 4, Rummuncap Excavator is literally Crucible of Worlds on legs. It costs 3 mana and it will put you in green, but for a deck like the Gitrog monster, being able to play your lands from the graveyard is an ability we desperately need more of, and for cheaper. Until now, the ever-expensive Crucible of Worlds was the only way to do this long term, and it was on a fragile artifact, which makes it an easy target. And while yes, our little Naga Cleric is equally fragile and susceptible to insert dice removal joke here, as a creature I feel like we have more ways to protect him from harm. Now, I generally don't like clone effects. I do play Phyrexian Metamorph, but for the most part in decks running blue, I have other cards I want that'll fill those slots. Mirage Mirror is the universal clone I feel will be huge in every kind of deck that isn't blue. I can make it a copy of anything short of a Planeswalker, and its ability to copy lands makes it immensely impactful. Say your opponent has a Gaia's Cradle out, or a Cabal Coffers, or just a land that produces the mana that you need that you might not have just yet. You copy it. What if your opponent's about to swing at you? Make it become their Ghostly Prison. Do you need a sack outlet? Make it become a Viscera Seer. This is a very flexible card, and at only 3 mana to cast, the 2 mana needed to make a copy of whatever arbitrary card you need will make this card super useful. I feel like I'm not alone in saying that the Amonkhet gods, while super awesome looking and very unique in vibe compared to the Theros gods, only a few of the first 5 really bring the same amount of oomph to the commander format as their predecessors do. The 3 additional gods of Amonkhet, however, have a lot more potency as commanders than any of the other 5. The Scarab God, in my opinion, is the best of the 3, and it'll earn its position on this list at number 3. I love Zombie Tribal. It's one of the decks I run in real life under Grimgrin Corpseborn. You may have seen a list I used in a video that I did covering another zombie commander, Gisa and Geralf. But the Scarab God is now the definitive zombie commander. It costs the exact same amount that Grimgrin does, it also has the same power and toughness. Yes, it's not a zombie itself, but giving you scry and burn to each opponent based on your swarm of zombies, it will make a huge waving commander. If you have just 5 zombies in play, not something difficult to do even if you don't have any zombie tokens out, this thing will send 5 damage around to each opponent, and then you can scry 5. This brings a level of advantage and card draw to this deck that I honestly don't think either of the other 2 zombie commanders could even hope to achieve. Smoothing out your next 5 draws is insane, and to make matters worse, it has other abilities. It can exile any creature from any graveyard and make it a 4/4 zombie copy. That means you could take that Freya Least player's Llanowar Elves, make yourself a 4/4 zombie token that can tap for 1 green mana. As if that weren't enough, this new trio of gods work around the commander tax by returning themselves from the graveyard to your hand during the next end step. Good gods, this thing is brutal. Sign me up. I think this is the one card I want the most from this whole set. At number 2 is another commander I feel will make a huge impact on the format, Razaketh the Foul-Blooded. For 8 mana, you get an 8/8 demon with flying and trample, both of which are super relevant abilities that are great evasion on such a huge creature. You can also sack another creature and tutor a card to your hand. Not only does that card go to your hand rather than the top deck, something that only a few tutors actually can do, but you could do this at instant speed. Black can ramp this guy out rather easily, I'd say, and that tutor ability gives you perfect access to your entire library. I think the card this reminds me most of is Griselbrand, and if you've never played against a Griselbrand deck before, it's likely because he's so stupidly powerful he got himself banned. Now, I don't want to make any assumptions just yet, but I feel Razaketh may end up following in the same footsteps as Griselbrand. And finally, at number 1 is a card that has already begun making waves around formats. It's been talked about on the internet since it was spoiled. Solemnity. Solemnity says that players cannot get counters. Counters can also not be placed on creatures, artifacts, lands, or enchantments. This will be the new key piece for a control deck. First off, no more experience counters, so Marin gets hosed. Poison counters can't be placed on a player, so you infect playing Atraxa players get hosed. Playing Yisan, no song for you. Playing Hapatra, no snakes for you. Anyone playing with charge counters, be it on the Vivid lands, the artifact decks, and so on, I'm sorry, but the hose comes for you as well. The deck I personally want this for the most is my Grand Arbiter deck, which if I get the combo of this and Decree of Silence out means unless you can counter this right away and not let it resolve, or have a permanent in play that can interact with this, I win. Decree of Silence counters everything opponents cast, but normally it would put a depletion counter on it, which would make it be sacrificed after it hits the third counter. Well, Solemnity can make it be used indefinitely because I never have to put a single counter on it. I feel like this is going to be one of the most impactful cards from the set in the Commander format, as just about any deck running some form of control in white will want this. Now to my viewers, I have a question for you. What cards from the Hour of Devastation are you hyped for Commander? Do you agree with the cards we've talked about today? Let me know down in the comments. I'm really hyped to get a lot of these new cards. As a little helpful advice to anyone trying to get into Commander and wanting to get some of these new cards, when the set releases, I recommend buying just the card singles you want rather than buying booster packs trying to crack them. Remember to like and share this video with your Commander play group. If you want to help support the channel, we have a Patreon that's geared at helping the channel upgrade the production equipment here. And lastly, if you're new to the channel, considering hitting subscribe for the latest Commander content. And I will see you guys next upkeep.